What's going on, everybody? Good afternoon. Hope you guys are doing well. And the combine is wrapping up today. We've got, I believe, offensive linemen and special teamers doing bench press. And then it's basically a wrap. Then everybody's basically going to get on out of there, get on with their lives, and see where they end up landing in April. So, obviously, I was trying to do up to date videos on all the stuff that was happening at the combine as it was happening. But when you do that, some stuff is going to slip through the cracks, especially because of the way they do things. Where for the positional groups, it was like what they were doing was they would do their broad jump and vertical jump first for everybody, and that would be off screen, so we didn't get to see that. And then they would do the 40-yard dash, which we would get to see. And then they would do the drills, like the on-field drills of like change of direction and running routes and, all that kind of stuff. Those drills that don't really have numbers attached to them, but they let us see how the players move and how comfortable the player is doing something. So we see all that. And then the players leave and do the 3-cone and the 20-yard shuttle. The 20-yard shuttle. So we don't get to see that. And then the next day they do the bench press. So we kind of miss out on a lot because the stuff we actually get to watch ends, and then the players still have to do the 3-cone, the 20-yard shuttle, and the bench press. So you miss a lot when you do things that way. It just kind of is what it is. Excuse me. So I want to go back and look at some of the stuff we might have missed. And we're going to start on the defense because the offense is still doing stuff today technically. So I want to start with the defense, and I'm not really going to touch the things that we already touched on because I don't feel the need to reiterate how good Dallas Turner looked, how he's the one guy I think I would be happy taking at 16 at edge because I just think he's that good. I don't need to reiterate stuff about Edgerrin Cooper and how good he looked. So we're going to keep it to some guys that I didn't talk so much about in previous videos that did something at the combine that I think is worthy of note. So this first guy is Jordan Jefferson, and he didn't do a heck of a lot at the combine, to be perfectly honest. He's a LSU defensive tackle, currently projected to be like a late day 3 pick. He stood out because he bench pressed 34 reps, which was by far the most of any player so far. So 34 bench press reps for Jordan Jefferson, that stands out. And to me, a guy like this just makes so much more sense than the guys that some people are talking about the Seahawks taking on the D-line. People are talking about Byron Murphy II. And Byron Murphy II had a pretty good combine, by the way. People are talking about Jerzan Newton. I just can't make those draft picks make very much sense when our defensive end position, our 3-tech, is so full. Unless we don't bring back Leonard Williams, which that's possible. But if we bring back Leonard Williams, I'm telling you, we're not really going to have room for a Jerzan Newton or a Byron Murphy II. And I don't believe, and this is just my opinion, of course, I don't believe either of those guys are so good you just have to draft them anyway. Like, they're not Aaron Donald. They're not, I don't even think they're like a Dexter Lawrence. They're good players, but I'm not looking at them and saying, oh, we have to take that guy because he's just that good, because that position is full. Far more reasonable, I think, is a guy like Jordan Jefferson, who could be a nose tackle at the NFL level. He's a little bit bigger, a little bit bulkier, not very explosive. We can see that in his jumps, which he did, 31 inches, 8'8", broad jump. That's not very good. So bench press 34, that tells you how strong he is and how stout he can be. So that's a little more interesting to me. So I was really zeroing in on a guy like him more so than a Byron Murphy or a Jerzan Newton. And I was looking to see what defensive tackles were going to stand out in the strength department that had a little bit of girth to them. So Jordan Jefferson would be that guy for me. Another guy who kind of slipped through the cracks initially for me was Mekhi Wingo. And this was a guy I was kind of excited to see this season. But nothing really happened. Nothing really happened with him. And I think he got hurt. I think he missed a lot of time. He just wasn't showing up at all. I don't think I shouted him out once in my college football weekly shout-out videos. He just never really got off the ground, and nevertheless, I do want to call out this combine because it was pretty nice. And at this point, Wingo is a guy you could get on day 3 potentially. I don't think he's going to be a very high pick at this point because he just wasn't productive last year. And he is undersized, but it's about the right size for a 3-4 end. 4.85 40, 164 10-yard split, so he's fast, he's quick, decent explosiveness, not great or anything, but it's better than the typical interior lineman, I think. And good bench press reps for an undersized guy, 25 bench press reps, he's strong. Again, the size is a little bit of a question mark, also with his arm length. He's only got 32-inch arms. That's not great, but this is a guy you might be able to get on day 3. And he would actually slot in nicely as a reserve on your defensive line, whereas you can't say that about a guy to me like Byron Murphy. If you get Byron Murphy, he's got to play a lot immediately. I don't know if we have the reps to give him. So, yeah, for me personally, I'm looking at a guy like Mekhi Wingo and saying, that's interesting, much more so. But 2 LSU guys on the line. Next guy was Curtis Jacobs, and I know that he had a pretty good combine. I knew at the time, but I wasn't really looking to specifically shout it out. Curtis Jacobs is interesting because he's one of the few linebackers that is more than 240 pounds. 241 at the combine. Most of these guys are sub 240. So 241, that's a little bit rare these days. His arms are a little bit short, but I wouldn't say critically short. They're still longer than Peyton Wilson's. He's got big hands, too, for whatever we think about that. But he measured out well. 4.58, reasonable. 159 10-yard split. 35-inch vert. 10-foot 4-inch jump. 18 bench press reps. It's not amazing, but you have to consider his size. He's bigger than the average linebacker. So him being a little bit slower or less explosive is understandable. And Curtis Jacobs was part of that great Penn State defense that was absolutely shut down for most of the season. And to me, he has to be part of the conversation here. Because we need linebackers, and we know we're not going to have a lot of picks early in the draft. We don't have like 3 first-round picks. We don't have a bunch of second-round picks. We don't have any. So a guy like Curtis Jacobs in the 4th round might be the solution that we have to accept because we might just not have the capital to bring in the guys who are at the top of the list. So I think Curtis Jacobs did pretty nicely at the linebacker spot. This next guy I already talked about a little bit, but I didn't go too deep into it because it's a cornerback, and we don't really need a cornerback. But I want to reiterate how good Quintin Mitchell looked, because he also actually led all cornerbacks in bench press reps with 20. So the dude kind of brought it all to the table. He's fast, he's quick, he's got explosiveness with a 38-inch vert. 10-foot 2-inch broad is not great, admittedly, but he brought it all to the table with that bench press of 20 reps. So I'm not saying we need a cornerback. I'm not saying I would be happy if we drafted this guy. I wouldn't be sad either. This guy's good, man. This guy's great. This guy's awesome. Like, I could see maybe you trade Woolen if we decide to go that route, which I'm hoping we don't. But if we traded Woolen and we're like, we want another superstar cornerback opposite Witherspoon, then Quintin Mitchell could be that guy. Because I don't think you're going to go out and spend money on that guy. I don't think you're going to go out and get somebody like, I don't even know who the superstar cornerbacks in free agency this year are. I guess L'Jarius Sneed. You're not going to go get a guy like that, right? So I can see it, but it's very unlikely. I'd prefer to not go that route. But this guy's pretty awesome. This guy's pretty great. He brought it all to the table at the Combine. He was already rocketing up draft boards before the Combine anyway, so it's not just the Combine. Gotta love what this guy is bringing to the table to the NFL in 2024. A couple of safeties that I missed on the initial video about them. First, local guy Dominique Hampton, best known as the guy who tried to jump over the line of scrimmage on blocking to block a field goal against Wazoo and almost handed them the game, because you can't do that. You shouldn't do that, and he did it. So I yelled at him a lot, but he had a great combine. And he needed to have a great combine because he wasn't the most productive player at UW, but he was out there, he was playing, he was productive, relatively speaking. Got good size, 6'2", 215 pounds, so he's got safety size for sure. 33.25-inch arms, so that's not going to be a big problem. Ran a nice 40, 4.51, that'll play all day. 155 10-yard split, decent. 39-inch vert, was one of the best among all safeties. 10-foot 2-inch broad's okay. He was one of the very few safeties who ran a 3-cone and a 20-yard shuttle, and they were both pretty good. 6.83, 4.14. So if you're looking for maybe a sleeper safety, who I don't even know if he's going to get drafted, and there are plenty of issues with him that you can see on his tape. But there's an athlete here that I didn't think existed. This was better than I expected him to test. Didn't think he was going to run this well combined with this size. This is nice. Final guy that I want to shout out here real quick is Malik Mustafa, because he's actually kind of been on my radar a little bit more lately anyway. And then he led all safeties in bench press reps with 22. And that's literally all he did. So I don't have a lot to say about Malik Mustafa, but he's fun, he's intriguing, he's interesting. And I was starting to kind of get turned on to him before he did the very little bit that he did at the combine. But what he did was, I guess, impressive. So, you know, he can hit. He can hit. No, not much for his arm length, though. But for a safety, I don't think that's the end of the world, the way it might be with some other positions like cornerback. All right. I will see you guys later. We're going to do offensive players either later today or tomorrow. The ones that just slipped through for me that I didn't really talk about. But those would be 6 guys that I think made positive movement in the combine this week. Let me know what you think. Let me know how you feel. Let me know if any of these guys stand out to you. I'll see you guys later today. Go Hawks. And it was a fun combine, man.